The WSL returned from the winter break in style this weekend. We saw 22 goals across the 6 matches as United beat City to knock their rivals out of realistic title contention, and Bon Pastor broke a record as Chelsea cruised to victory against West Ham, becoming the first WSL manager to remain unbeaten after 11 games. Elsewhere, Liverpool's rejuvenated side beat the form team of the campaign in Brighton, and Everton held Aston Villa thanks to a late equaliser. This is our Matchweek 11 WSL review. Alright, let's get into it. This weekend, the WSL returned from its winter break for match week 11 of the 24-25 season. So a very good campaign so far, Harry, and we returned with a high goal scoring weekend.
Yeah, very much so. It was a brilliant game of action to come back to. It wasn't what we anticipated. We always knew this game week was good to deliver, but I never expected it to deliver in such a large magnitude. It was a brilliant game week. We saw a lot of goals, an incredible amount of goals. And just all in all, some really key results for how this second half of the season, how 2025 could play out for some teams.
Yeah, we'll start with Friday night, then Liverpool 2, Brighton 1. And this, I think, set the tone for the weekend. A Brighton side who have been the form team of the season. Liverpool side that struggled with injuries, but have recruited over January and have seen a few players come back. And Liverpool look really good.
Yeah, very much so. As you say, I think that we always knew that Liverpool squad on its day, with all their players fit, that starting 11 for me is one of the best sides in the league, and that showed in this game against Brighton. Herbing are back, they had Parry back, they had key players in key areas that just meant they played so much better, and they looked 10 times better than they did in any performance in 2024. You think their last game, match week 10, they got torn apart by Manchester United. They come into this game week, and I think they did play well. I think the Olivia Smith goal was absolutely brilliant. What a player and what a goal.
And it's that physicality to shrug off Bergspan, but then the pace just to blast away from her. Yeah. And then the finish, of course, was sublime. But it's nothing less than we expect or nothing more than we expect from Olivia Smith, a fantastic player. I thought that obviously Brighton have been able to be so prolific, so efficient in attacking areas, but in this game they only took 5 shots, only 2 of which were on target. Is this a mixture of things? Because people will say, well, this is just really good Liverpool performance, but this was probably one of the worst performances we've seen from Brighton this season. It was.
I do think that the own goal in the latter stages was potentially a little bit unfortunate, and for me, on reflection, I think a draw probably would have been the fairest result in the game. I think that I think Liverpool was slightly better, but maybe they did get what they deserved in the end. But overall, it was a really close game, and I think it was Brighton were unlucky that they ended up losing it. But as you say, it wasn't very good from Brighton. That they just didn't seem to be as dangerous as they did in the first half of the season, and that will be slightly concerning because the likes of Tottenham and Liverpool are starting to gain on them, and that 5th place is now starting to look a little bit at risk. But they're still a very, very good side. On their day, I still think that they can play very, very well. They just need to find that performance again. Write this game off. They didn't play well enough, and go again next week and deliver a better performance.
Yeah, I'd actually argue that Liverpool should have had a greater margin of victory. You look at the Paris goal, and that I thought was very fortunate. I know Liverpool.
Yeah, it was.
His own goal was somewhat fortunate, but it was a shot on target that was deflected in. So same as Paris's really. So yeah, I get what you're saying there. I also think Liverpool could have scored a few more. Enderby's cross shot, where she was on goal, was slightly wide of the mark. So she decided to try. It was between a cross and a shot, and Leanne Kiernan definitely could have met that if she just slid into it. Instead, she just ran and couldn't quite meet it. So, yeah, I think Liverpool could add more in this game, but they look really good. They're playing really well. I think Sam Kerr's a nice addition. She looks good. I think they're missing Rachel Lawes massively because it is a big downgrade to Tegan Micah, but she did okay for everything bar the goal. But yeah, I think it's much more positive for Liverpool, and with players returning from injury, they look to be in a good position.
Yeah, they're getting back to where they were, which they finished 4th last season. They'd do very well to get the 4th this campaign, but who knows? There's a long way to go. If they keep playing well and the sides above them keep dropping points, then they're going to find themselves climbing right back up the table.
Yeah, the results saw Liverpool stay 7th in the league, or climb 7th in the league on 12 points. They moved 2 points within Tottenham, and they moved 5 points off Brighton. Brighton in 5th now, only 3 above Tottenham. It's looking treacherous now for Brighton, their position. It doesn't look stable like it did a few few weeks ago.
It doesn't, but on performance based, I think there's a massive gap between Brighton and Tottenham, and that will eventually, I think that will eventually level itself out. I mean,
Yeah.
but I get what you're saying. I mean, I think they've got to be careful they don't be caught. I don't think they'll be caught by Tottenham because, well, they might, because Tottenham might just keep winning games somehow. But this was a big result because for me, Liverpool are probably the ones that would catch up to them if they play their football. So this was a really huge match for both teams.
Yeah, and 5 points is hardly insurmountable. So I think it's gonna be really tight. I think Liverpool are in a good position now. They had a good window, and I think when it comes to those games against those teams around them, we've seen they can beat Brighton. Yeah. I think they should be able to beat someone like Tottenham, like Aston Villa, like Everton, and they shouldn't have any trouble against the bottom three. So there's a lot of points on offer if they can go and take them. And let's move on to the Saturday fixture then. Everton 1, Aston Villa 1. How would you assess this game? Were Everton lucky, or would you say that they were good defensively and that allowed them to then capitalise at the end?
I think Courtney Brosnan had an absolutely phenomenal game, and for me that was the simple reason that Everton were still in the game. I want to say 9 saves for Brosnan, absolutely incredible. Without that, Everton would have been 2-3 or 4-0 down, and they wouldn't have had a chance of getting back into the game. So, for me, I think they were very fortunate to be afforded the opportunity to get back in the game and to take a point from it. Aston Villa played some really nice football. They were much the better side. I know they had a lot of shots and they probably should have scored more, but because of the Brosnan masterclass, it's hard to say they were in clinical. A lot of the shots were on target. They were doing really well to put a lot of pressure onto the Everton goalkeeper, but Brosnan matched everything they threw at her, and that it was one of those games where I think for Villa they will be frustrated. They should have won the game, but at the end of the day, they remain undefeated under Sean Gota. They've looked really sharp since Sean Gota's come in as the interim manager, and Everton will count themselves very lucky, but they'll be well happy with a point.
Yeah, as you say, it's a really useful point. I thought Villa were much the better side throughout this. I thought they were dominant in possession. They took a lot of shots, as you say. I don't think either that they were very good at breaking Everton down, though, in the sense they couldn't really get high-quality opportunities. They didn't generate a single big chance in the match. Neither did Everton. And I think that's why it made it somewhat easier for Brosnan. 9 saves is still phenomenal, and there were some great stops in there, but a lot of them were saves from range or saves from low-quality opportunities. So it wasn't like Aston Villa were missing loads of chances. They were actually doing quite well with the chances they had. They had 14 shots in the game. They put 10 of them on target. 1 went in. Brosnan saved the other 9. So it was difficult to say they could have done more, but I think the problem now for Villa, and this will be why they perhaps look at getting in a permanent manager, is that creativity, because they're not creating big chances, they're not generating high expected goals opportunities, and so high XG opportunities, so they're not looking like they're going to be able to take advantage of all that dominance. They had 57% of the ball, they made 428 passes, they were all over that Everton side in terms of being able to use the ball, recycle the ball, and look to create opportunities, but they weren't really breaking in behind, they weren't really creating opportunities that were of a high quality. As for Everton, it was very smash and grab. Again, it feels, we're reminiscent of the last game they played against Manchester City. The Beatrice Sari goal was fortunate in its nature. She did really well. It was really well taken. It's just how it fell to her, battling away for it, then it just dropped for her. And it was well struck and a deserved point for Brosnan. For Everton, they could have done more to prevent Villa, but I think they did well to stop them generating high-quality opportunities. And obviously, Brosnan bailed them out on the other on those occasions. So... Yeah, I think this shows that Villa have the squad there to be a lot higher. It's just about who do they appoint as a manager, if they do indeed appoint anyone before the end of the season. But yeah, I think Everton are well set up, but perhaps don't have the quality. I do think Martina Fernandez came in and looked quite good. So I think that's a huge positive for them. I think Hayley Ladd's come in and brought some just calm into that midfield. And so a lot of positives for Everton. But I still think they are a bit off of that Aston Villa, Liverpool, Tottenham, Brighton group.
I think the situation both these clubs are in at the moment in this season, they will both view it as they're a 1 point further away from the drop now. And I think that's the way you've got to keep looking at it. Yes, Villa were the better side, but at the end of the day, Sean Gota is coming as the interim just to keep them in the league and just to keep the points ticking over, and that's what he's doing. And credit to him. As for Everton, they'll be happy with a point in a game they were outplayed in, but I still think there's a lot of potential to come from that side.
Yeah, definitely so. Let's move on then, on to Sunday and on to Tottenham 1, Leicester City 0. One of the biggest robberies of the season. Probably, I know someone said, when we live streamed this game, and someone in the live chat said that only the Everton win against Liverpool at Goodison Park was as fraudulent. But yeah, Tottenham really weren't good in this game. They didn't have a single shot on target. They only had 2 shots all game. The goal coming in the 5th minute off of Janina Leipzig. They just weren't at the races at all, Tottenham. The build-up play was slightly better than what we've seen this season. I think Mota Oros had a good game, but overall, they really struggled to move the ball forwards. I think both their wingers struggled. I think England didn't really get involved in the game. Drew Spence kept getting dispossessed. They just couldn't move the ball forwards. And were really fortunate that Leicester City just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Tottenham have won a football match without having a shot on target. It's mental how on earth they won this game. As you say, it was very much they did well to get the ball to the halfway line. But as soon as it got one of those attackers, you had Howard or Ale or Tebow who would step in, win the ball back, and Leicester would move it quickly and they'd bring it forward. Their problem was, as soon as they got into the penalty area, they didn't know what to do with it. And there were so many chances. Leicester should have had a hatful, and with any form of striker on the football pitch, they would have scored 3 or 4. Genuinely,
Yeah.
Tottenham could have been battered. And that is why it's such a bizarre game, is that not only did Tottenham win without having a shot themselves, but they probably should have lost 3 or 4-0. And how they've taken 3 points away from this football match, I will never know. And for Leicester and for Amadine Mikel, she must be thinking, what on earth can she do to possibly win a match? You know, they now haven't won one in their last 6 or 7. It's not looking good, but they have to be positive because the performances are there. If they had someone in the who could literally they could have had one player who didn't move, who just stood in the penalty area for the whole game, and they would have still scored because that's how good their chances were.
Yeah, Janice Kamen had 2 big chances herself. The one that she spooned wide that was easier to score than it was to miss, and the other where she kicked the air. But it's just some big opportunities there that went begging. Takarada just isn't a striker. I don't know how many times we need to watch that before we can accept that is fact. But yeah, just that there was a chance where they put the ball in towards the front post, and if a striker made that near post run, no one reacted for Tottenham. It was just running through to the goalkeeper who is stood in the middle of the goal. So if you're pounced on the near post there, it's a goal. And that's the big difference. It's just not that instinctive movement from Takarada or any of Leicester's attackers for the fact of the matter. But yeah, I think it's really frustrating for Leicester. They just need to sign some attackers who can score some goals.
Yeah,
and it's a shame for them they don't have Nomi Mouchon or Yudarantala, but they've got to sign backups. It's January now, and they still don't have a backup striker. How they went into the season without a backup striker is beyond me. So yeah, I think they've got to make an addition.
They have, because what's frustrating is they've got everything but the striker, and by that I mean they've got the incredible defensive structure which we saw. They didn't allow Tottenham to have a sniff apart from the own goal in the 5th minute, and from there Tottenham didn't trouble Leicester at all. But and then they've got the chance creation. I think that when you actually, Goodwin had a really good game. She looked so sharp with the ball at her feet, was just getting the ball and being direct with Ash Neville and just running at Tottenham and caused them issues. And I think the rest of the team looked good. I think the fullbacks were doing very well to get up and support the attack and crossing balls in and causing issues. They just got nothing in the box to finish it off. And as you say, they have to sign someone, because if not, it could be disaster. Because they're a very good football team. They play very, very good football. But if they can't score a goal, they will find themselves in a terrible position at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to see that, because Mikel is a good manager. They've got a really good team. They just need to start scoring some goals. And for Tottenham, they have to get found out. They cannot keep. They did it for the first half of the season. I don't think they played very well, and they got away with it. That can't happen again in the second half of the season. There's no way they can play like they did yesterday and expect to get away with it.
Well, they don't beat any other side in the league playing like that. That's the thing. But yeah, really poor performance, as you say. They're 3 points off Brighton now in the league, though, so they're 6th in the table somehow. As for Leicester, well, that 3 points would have seen them rise above West Ham, but they didn't claim it. They're still sat in 11th. They're still only on 6 points and only a point above the drop zone.
It's tough reading. It is tough reading. As we said during the live stream, when you actually watch the game, Leicester played like the team who are 3 points off Brighton, and Tottenham played like the team who are 1 point ahead of the relegation zone.
I mean, Leicester have conceded the least bar the top four
That's
in the league.
incredible.
And they've conceded a 3-4 less than everyone else. Considerably less than the teams around them, like Palace and West Ham. Considerably less than Tottenham, 9 less, in fact, than Tottenham. But they've also scored 13 less than Tottenham. And that's the key difference. Leicester can't put the ball in the back of the net. They have to sign attackers in January. If not, it's going to be the same story in the second half of the season. But they don't deserve to go down. There's so much quality in the side. They just don't have a striker. They don't have someone who can put the ball in the back of the net, which is such a key element. And when you think, oh, they've got Liverpool coming up, they've got Everton coming up, they've got Aston Villa coming up, they're big games for their season.
Yeah.
So they've got to get that right. They've got to go out and sign a striker. Anyway, let's move on to Arsenal 5, Crystal Palace 0. A fairly routine victory for the Gunners, but emphatic fashion behind it.
Yeah, very much so. You know, a team. We're now talking about a team who have got a lot of players who can put the ball in the back of the net, and they did so. It was the perfect game, I think, for Rene Slagers to have her first as the proper man, not the proper manager for Arsenal, but the permanent manager for Arsenal. A brilliant performance from the Gunners. They're on a brilliant run of form, and I don't think this result was ever in doubt. Russo gets on the score sheet once again. I think it's now like 7 goals in 6 goals in 7 WSL games or something ridiculous like that. Been in absolutely incredible form. Karen Tay on the score sheet. Mead back on the score sheet. A goal for Williamson after 667 days. Absolutely incredible for Arsenal. They played some brilliant stuff. I think the Mead goal was superb. That team move throughout the whole pitch and finished off nicely by Mead.
Really nice combinations.
They're playing so well at the moment. Huge game coming up. Their biggest test is coming up this weekend, and I think that it's perfect timing for them because they're on such a high. Great opportunity to go and give Chelsea a game, but you know the results elsewhere sees Arsenal rise to second. A superb performance, and for Palace, not really much they could have done about it.
Yeah, Russo has scored in successive appearances in the WSL since that Manchester United game on the 3rd of November. She has scored in every WSL game she's played. It's a really difficult run to try and stop, really. And yeah, I think it bodes well for Arsenal. They've got a striker now who is feeling confident, who looks sharp in front of goal, who looks switched on. And with, obviously, as you say, Chelsea this weekend, City the weekend after, the Champions League coming up in early March, this is exactly the sort of form they need Russo to keep up over the next few months. And then who knows what position they'll be in. You know, the Women's League Cup is a competition they'll be hoping to win. That final comes up at during March, and obviously the semis and quarters over the next few weeks. So, yeah, I think it's looking positive for Arsenal. This game was expected, but I think they're very pleased with the emphatic manner in which they've won, because there would have been games like this earlier in the season where they'd scored in the 6th minute, where I know that they didn't leave, they left it until the hour mark. But once they hit that hour mark, they then added another 4, and it looked much more convincing. There have been other games this season, especially under Idaval, where they've been 1-0 up, and then they just wouldn't have kicked on, and then you leave that jeopardy, where maybe Crystal Palace get a goal, maybe they come back into it. But Arsenal completely put this game out of sight, and a big victory.
I think it's one of those where for Arsenal, is we mentioned that Chelsea game, the City game, the Subway Cup quarter final game coming up, the Champions League. This is crunch time for Arsenal. This is the point in the season where, over the last couple of years, where Arsenal, they would have played well, and then they get to this crunch period, and it starts to fall apart, and the wheels fall off the wagon, and they start to lose games. With Rene Slagers in charge now, the form they're on, huge period. If they go out and they manage to avoid defeat against Chelsea and go and beat Man City and win the Subway Cup quarter final, puts themselves in a perfect position. Huge couple weeks for the Gunners now. They have to take performances like yesterday, and they have to use them, and they have to just build on them going into those bigger games. I think, and that will be key to how much success they get out of this season, and how much, and what Rene Slagers can achieve at the end of her first campaign. I think for Crystal Palace, it's one of those where it's you move on and forget. They were always expected to lose this game. I think they'll be disappointed in the manner they lost it, saying they managed to keep it down to 1 for an hour, and then they conceded 4 in 25-30 minutes. They'll be very disappointed about that, and that's happened a few too many times this season now for Palace, where they did against Chelsea. They stayed in the game for 45 minutes, and then for the next 45 got absolutely torn apart and shipped so many goals. They've got to stop conceding so many.
Smith, it's been a theme for Palace this season. They fatigue really early, and once they hit the hour mark, they tend to capitulate. We saw it against Tottenham. We saw it, as you say, against Chelsea. I thought we saw evidence of it against West Ham, where they were so good in the first 20 minutes. They fell apart for the half, admittedly, but then that second half they really just didn't come out, and West Ham got another 2 in those last 10-15 minutes. So it's been the story of their season, really, but they've got to try and keep the goals down, even if this is a result where even if it's a game where they go, well, we're not going to win this, but you want to go out there and you want to keep those goals down. You want to try and get something from the game. Palace, they conceded on 6 minutes. They didn't seem to believe after that. Arsenal couldn't put the ball in the back of the net for a while. But Palace should have kept it tighter. Palace should have been.
Yeah.
If this is 2 or 3, it's a lot more respectable. And the problem now is that they find themselves having conceded 31 goals and on minus 23 goal difference. If it were to come down to that this season, there's no way that any other team's anywhere near that.
And the problem for Palace is that, obviously, they were never expected to get anything out of this game. But if they don't start picking up points soon, then suddenly they are going to have to go to big sides and they are going to have to get big results if they want any chance of staying in the division.
Well, they've got Tottenham next, which should be a win because Tottenham
that's huge.
They're playing really poorly, but then again, they may just get a result. They've then got Brighton, United, Liverpool, which is a tough run into March. Their games come after that because they play Aston Villa, Everton, Arsenal, Chelsea, West Ham, Leicester, Man City.
They've got the running, which is key. They've got a couple results. They've got, I know City on the last day is not a nice one, but they've got
4 of the last 6 are winnable. Or 4 of the last 7 are winnable.
And I think the Tottenham game the Tottenham game could be absolutely crucial, and that could be the thing that really sets up. If they host Tottenham, after they lost 4-0 to them, the way Tottenham are playing, there's a big chance Palace can get something out of the game. If they get a point, they could see themselves get out of the relegation zone. If they get a win, they'll definitely see themselves get out. They'll go joint with West Ham in 10th, and suddenly that is absolutely huge. So for me, this coming weekend is absolutely critical for Palace.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's take a tube ride now from North London down to West London, where we witnessed West Ham 0, Chelsea 5. We didn't witness it, but we've watched it. West Ham were not really in this. A vintage Chelsea showing, particularly poor performance from West Ham though, and Chelsea remain top of the league in dominant fashion.
Yeah, an incredible game, and what a way for Bompastor to set a new record of being the first manager to go unbeaten in their first 11 games in the WSL. Absolutely ridiculous. Chelsea were superb, and I think there was 2 or 3 contenders in this match for goal of the season. Cat Macario's strike was brilliant. Aguilera Jones's strike was also very, very good, and Baltimore's as well was another really, really good effort. So Chelsea were just scoring worldies, playing really nice football, and West Ham just couldn't keep up. It was as simple as that.
Yeah.
Really good Chelsea performance, and it was much needed after ending the year with that draw to Leicester was not ideal, and Bompastor was clearly very unhappy with that game. They come into the new year and they absolutely batter West Ham.
Yeah, indeed. This felt much more vintage Chelsea. They were all over the hammers in the first half. They put the game out of sight really by the 44th minute and went into the break, but they didn't let up, and they kept on being ruthless in the second half, and then that's why they went on to win 5-0. A dominant victory. It takes Chelsea's points tally now up to 31 for the season. 36 goals scored, only 6 against. Yeah, 68% possession in this game. 23 shots to 6. 10 shots on target to 1.
Incredible.
It's just completely dominant.
Yeah, when there are stats like that, West Ham could have done nothing. There's nothing.
West Ham didn't even have a corner. Chelsea had 16.
Imagine having a corner in a foot. Sick, and then the fact the opposition got 16. That is absurd. There was West Ham. They had nothing in their power they could have done in this match to stop losing, and that is how good Chelsea are. Sometimes they blow teams out the water to make it literally impossible for the opposition to win the match.
And you feel for Kinga Shemek because she's conceded 5 here, but there's not a lot she could have done to save the ones they conceded, and she made 5 saves.
Yeah.
So a difficult one. Tisiak and Zadorsky, I said it in the mid-season review, I don't think they've had a particularly good season. I think they've both been too error-prone, and their rotation options, Camille Size, who seems to be on a one-woman mission to tank West Ham.
And now Tisiak's put in her own net, so they're all just taking it in turns.
I thought the whole back line didn't cover themselves in glory. I don't think Kirsty Smith had a good game either. I mean, it is quite impressive to clock up a 3.1 rating on FootMob. Just
tough.
I mean, it made an error that led to a goal, but just couldn't really get involved in the game. Katrina Gorey still put up a 7.9. No idea if she managed that. But Chelsea, good performance again. It's a good win on the road. It's a comfortable victory, and it just extends their lead at the top. It's now looking very difficult to see anyone catching them.
Yeah, and for Chelsea, they as you say, especially with the result that we'll talk about in a minute, Chelsea are clear. They're having a great time. They're unbeaten. They're partying at the top. They won't rest on their laurels because Bompastor knows what it's like, and She knows how to win a league, so they will continue to be ruthless. And they could find themselves, if they win this Sunday against Arsenal, then suddenly they are 10 points clear, and they're absolutely gone.
Well,
and,
United could keep it.
United could keep it at 8, but I mean 8 points clear with with 10 or so games to go, it would be absolutely incredible. For West Ham, I think they've got to be careful because, as we've mentioned earlier in the video, Leicester are a very, very good side and could definitely leapfrog them if they start scoring goals. And Crystal Palace have got a huge game coming up this weekend against Tottenham, and I still think they've got the potential. We have bought in Clarissa Larissé as a good signing. West Ham have got to be careful because if they keep losing games and if they get a little bit comfortable sitting in 10th, the two sides below them could definitely jump them, and then suddenly they're in the relegation spot.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Manchester United there being close to Chelsea. Let's talk about why that is. Manchester City 2, Manchester United 4. Now, I think we're going to do a video, a more tactical analysis of what happened in this game. But, Harry, what on earth happened here?
I mean, game of the season so far, absolutely brilliant. How do you analyse it? How do you talk about it? A incredible contest. What a game for not only for the fact that it was a huge game in the context of WSL, but for a derby, it was absolutely brilliant. The first half was split for me into two sections. It was half an hour where Manchester United played Man City off the park and ran riot at the Etihad, scoring 3 goals in 35 minutes. And then I think United got comfortable. City had 10-15 minutes where they got themselves back in the game before half-time through 2 really good headers from Miedemar and Knack. And then I think it was set up for a second half where United had the lead and City had the momentum, and it was all killed in the first 10 seconds by an absolute howler from Keating. And without that, I think City could have got a result from the game. But I just think that killed it off. I really do. That third goal for Ella Toone, and what a game for her, by the way. But yeah, that Toone's third, United's fourth, coming 10 seconds into the second half. That was it. That was enough. That's all United needed, and then they could just sit deep, absorb pressure, and win the game. And credit to Mark Skinner and Man United because they were superb. They did have I definitely think he'll be very frustrated about the last 10 minutes of the first half, but take that away, they were superb for the rest of the game.
Yeah, a game littered with defensive errors, especially in the Manchester City third. Their inability to play out from the back, the number of mistakes Keating made in possession. They shot themselves in the foot in this game, Manchester City, but United were on hand to capitalise on that. A hat-trick for Ella Toone on her return from injury. Elizabeth Turland with a hat-trick of assists. A very productive day, and I think it's a performance and a result that United can take immense pride in. I think when you consider where they were not too long ago, only last season, they were nowhere near Manchester City. And this is the first time they've ever beaten City away from home in the WSL, which is a fantastic result. And no less than they deserved in this one. They fought harder, they won their duels. That was the biggest thing for me, was those duels. They were getting to the ball first, they were more desperate to go and win it. And they simply wanted it more than Manchester City.
Yeah.
City weren't on it for large parts of the first half. As you say, there's a 10-minute spell at the end of the half where United switched off. They sort of went into cruise mode, and that allowed City to capitalise. And once they put Mary Fowler on the right-hand side and she could start crossing balls in, we saw her put a cross in, and Viviana Miedemar headed home wonderfully. And great movement. Again, that's why you put Miedemar up front. She's got great box presence. And then she put in a corner, which Rebecca Knack scored. So maybe play Fowler on the right flank and it might work, Gareth Taylor. But yeah, defensively they were awful. Ua Harvey made an error leading to a goal and looked awful throughout. I don't think Kasparov looked good. I don't think Alexandru looked good. I think Knack, there were moments where she looked good, but she got shrugged off way too easily for that opening goal. Obviously, she scored, so that's going to have an impact on how you view her performance. But overall, I thought they were defensively awful.
Yeah.
And it's no surprise. We spoke about this in the preview on Friday, about how United could expose those defensive flaws for City, and they did with their pressing, because they were so effective in the press. They're out of possession shape, where they were narrow, they were compact. And what I really liked, and we'll analyse this further on our Wednesday video, was those wingers tracking the runs of the fullbacks. We know how they like to push Ua Harvey and Kasparov up high. And United responded by dropping Goughton and Bizet to tracking those runners. And it works because they're both players who've played fullback this season. And they're both players who can contribute defensively. And then they'd win that ball back and they could spring forward. And you've got Ella Toone up there who you can play off. You've got Elizabeth Turland who can hold that ball up and bring others into the game. You've got runners from midfield with Dominique Janssen, with Hinata Miyazawa. And that is why we saw them so successfully.
Yeah.
And then if the winger dropped, the fullback for United could go forwards, or they both attack. So they looked really good in this game, United. They played really well. City were poor, bar at the end of the first half where they put up a good 10-minute spell. But overall, really impressive by Manchester United. It all came from their out of possession work. City had 74% of the ball.
Wow.
And they had 22 shots, but they weren't clinical with their opportunities. They only had 2 big chances of those 22 shots. United had 6 big chances. Wow. And they only had 5 shots on target. So that says it all for me.
Yeah. United were superb. I think, a lot of people will question United's second and third goals. Should they have counted? Should they have not? I think...
Definitely not. They're both offside.
Yeah, for me, probably shouldn't. But again, it's another call for VAR because I think the third one was way too tight for the linesman to work out. And the second one was... I think I've still watched 15 replays, and whether it comes off Turland or I think it does come off Turland, but the referee can't see that in a moment. But the way I look at it is, yes, again, it's the same call. We need VAR. We have to help out the officials.
We should be playing at the men's stadiums. They're all Premier League sides. They've all got that technology.
At the end of the day, I think the main thing to take from it is that yes, maybe those goals shouldn't have gone in, but the side who won, the United deserve to win. Is basically what I'm trying to say in terms of they deserve those goals. Yes, those goals didn't go in, but I still think United would have scored at some point. Yeah. They were brilliant, and yeah, I think that as much as those goals are pretty controversial, they were deserved goals in terms of I still think that even if both had been ruled out, United would have still gone on to win the game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. United only made 89 passes in the first half, 72 in the second half.
It's incredible, absolutely
City
incredible.
Completed 380.
And people will say that looks like City outclass United, but it's not, because that was the game plan from Skinner. He didn't want the ball. He didn't want to play passes. Didn't go out there to pass the ball and have loads of possession. United had a game plan and they executed it perfectly, and that's why you have to give credit to the players and Skinner, because the way Skinner set his side up yesterday was perfect, and the players executed it and implemented it superbly, and they thoroughly deserve to win the game. And it is they're rewarded. They fly into the top 3, and these two sides have got to play each other again on Wednesday, and that's going to be a very close game. Yeah. And as for City, alarm bells are ringing because they've slipped outside the Champions League spaces.
It's another game where City struggled to break down a good defensive side, and it was an absolute masterclass in how to defend from Manchester United and from Mark Skinner. Yeah. So hats off to that, and I'm sure we'll be analysing that later in the week. So look out for that in a couple of days. And then obviously these two sides meet again on Wednesday, so that should be a really interesting time, the Women's League Cup quarter-final stage.
Yeah, that's good, I think, especially for City. Gives them a chance to immediately redeem themselves, which is crucial. If they lose it, though, it gets worse.
Yeah,
that's
indeed,
the problem.
Because realistically now, they're not going to win the WSL. I wouldn't have them up there for the UWCL. And so they've got to focus on domestic cups, and this is a really difficult quarterfinal time. Again,
we'll talk about it more on Wednesday, but I think if they finish outside Europe, Gareth Taylor has to win something to save his job.
Yeah.
For me, that's as simple as it is. And that is why they'll be worried that they've now slipped 2 points off the top 3.
2 off United, 2 points off Arsenal. They play Arsenal in 2 weeks' time. Obviously, Arsenal have to play Chelsea in the meantime. But yeah, it's very tight now. Very tight. Very difficult to call. But
they're 9 off Chelsea.
Yeah, realistically, for all intents and purposes, they're out of the title race, and that's a really damning position to be in halfway through the season.
Yeah. Wow.
But the problem is, I don't see where Chelsea dropped 9 points relative to City in the next 11 games. Based on what we've seen this first half of the season, where Chelsea dropped 1 point. 2 points, sorry.
Yeah.
They've only dropped 1 game. Anyway, fantastic from Chelsea this weekend. Not so from Manchester City. Brilliant from United. Brilliant from Arsenal. The top of the table is looking very tasty. But yeah, that is everything from us this game week. We are back in the midweek. We'll be doing some more videos, some more streams, and of course join us this weekend for WSL action. Obviously, we're going to Chelsea Arsenal, so we won't be here to stream, but we will be here for Aston Villa Man City, or at least Harry will be here for Aston Villa Man City, so that should be good. That, though, is everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.